Have you ever opened your eyes in the morning and felt like you hadn't slept at all? That bone-deep fatigue that clings to your limbs? The mental fog that clouds your thoughts before your feet even hit the floor? That's exactly what 68-year-old Charlotte Miller began to notice not long after retiring from her job as a school librarian in rural Vermont. She had spent decades waking up early, juggling work, raising kids, and helping care for her aging parents. But now, in what was supposed to be her peaceful chapter, Charlotte found herself more exhausted than ever. She'd go to bed at 10 p.m., sleep until 6, and still feel like she hadn't rested. At first, she blamed herself. Maybe she was just out of shape or getting lazy. But as the months went on, the fatigue didn't fade. It deepened. And when she mentioned it to her doctor, all she heard was, "That's just part of aging." But something inside Charlotte pushed back. She knew this wasn't just age. Something deeper was going on, and she was determined to find out what it was. This is her story, and it might just be yours too. Charlotte's breaking point came one chilly November morning. The wind swept over the Vermont hills, shaking the windows of her cozy cottage. She had planned to bake a pie for her granddaughter's birthday, something she used to do with joy and ease. But that morning, even lifting the flour jar felt like a mountain climb. Her arms trembled, her legs felt like lead, and she burst into tears before the oven was even preheated. She sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in a thick sweater, staring out at the bare trees, wondering what was happening to her. "Is this just what getting old feels like?" she whispered aloud, her voice cracking with frustration. But deep down, something didn't sit right. Charlotte had always been resilient. She had weathered tough winters, heartbreaks, and family illness with strength. But this unrelenting fatigue, felt different. It wasn't about being tired from doing too much. It was like her body was draining itself for no reason. That night, after the house was quiet, Charlotte opened her laptop and searched. Why do older women feel tired all the time? To her surprise, she found hundreds of stories just like hers. Women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, saying they felt utterly exhausted no matter how much they slept or how well they ate. One post caught her eye. A woman wrote, "I thought I was just getting old, but it turns out my hormones had crashed after menopause and no one ever told me." Charlotte's heart skipped. Could that be it? She had gone through menopause more than a decade ago, and her doctor had never mentioned what happens after. Like so many women, she thought menopause was a chapter that simply ended. But what if that was just the beginning of a long, silent decline her body had been trying to warn her about? The next day, Charlotte marched into her doctor's office, not just for answers, but for advocacy. She brought a printed list of symptoms: fatigue, brain fog, difficulty sleeping, and a constant heaviness in her body. She asked to have her hormone levels tested. The doctor raised an eyebrow but agreed. A week later, the results were back. Her estrogen and progesterone levels were almost non-existent. Charlotte finally had a name for what she was feeling: postmenopausal hormone deficiency. It wasn't in her head. It wasn't just age. It was real. That moment changed everything. For the first time in years, Charlotte felt hopeful. Not because she had a magic cure, but because she had clarity. Now she could take the next step, not blindly, but informed. And that one step, asking the right question, was the start of reclaiming her energy, her peace, and her life. Just when Charlotte thought she was on the path to healing, life threw her a curveball. One cold afternoon in early December, she had driven into town for her follow-up appointment. She felt a bit more optimistic after starting low-dose hormone therapy under her doctor's supervision. Her energy wasn't fully back, but she no longer needed to nap every afternoon. As she waited for her prescription at the pharmacy, Charlotte bumped into her old friend Eleanor, whom she hadn't seen in nearly a year. They hugged, exchanged pleasantries, but within minutes, Charlotte noticed something unsettling. Eleanor's hands were trembling, her posture slightly hunched. She looked pale and distracted. "I've just been so tired, Charlotte," Eleanor said, voice shaking. "I can barely get through the day. My doctor says it's just part of aging." Charlotte's stomach dropped. It was like looking in a mirror, a version of herself from just weeks ago. Without hesitation, she took Eleanor's hands and said, "It doesn't have to be this way. Ask for hormone testing, and don't stop asking until someone listens." Eleanor teared up. "I thought I was just broken." Later that night, something clicked deep inside Charlotte. This wasn't just about her anymore. She realized how many women like Eleanor, like all of them, were walking around silently suffering, thinking it was their fault, accepting exhaustion as a sentence, not a symptom. But the next morning, the unexpected hit much closer to home. Charlotte's daughter Layla called in tears. "Mom, Grandpa fell in the garage last night. He's okay, but I'm overwhelmed. Can you help with the kids this week?" Charlotte loved her grandkids more than anything, but the thought of chasing toddlers, packing lunches, doing drop-offs, it suddenly felt like too much. Her heart sank. "I'll try," she said softly, hanging up the phone and sitting in silence. Tears welled up, not from the request, but from the fear that she might not be able to show up. Not like she used to, not like she wanted to. For the first time, Charlotte wasn't just tired, she was afraid. Afraid she wouldn't be strong enough for the people who needed her most. That she'd become the woman who said no, the one who missed out. But instead of spiraling, she stood up, walked to the bathroom mirror, and whispered, "No more ignoring this. My energy is my freedom, my ability to live, and I will get it back." She made a promise to herself that day. She would not only learn what was happening inside her body, she would fight for it. And that fierce decision, born in a moment of quiet panic, became the turning point she never saw coming. Charlotte had always been the kind of woman who powered through. She raised 2 daughters on her own, balanced a full-time job, and never complained. Not when her car broke down in the snow, not when her youngest had pneumonia at age 5. She prided herself on being dependable, unshakable. But now, standing at the edge of her own limits, she was beginning to see things differently. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and cast golden light through her kitchen window, Charlotte sat down with a notebook. She drew a line down the middle of the page. On one side, she wrote, "What I've always given others." On the other, "What I've given myself." Under the first column, she quickly filled the space. Time, energy, patience, meals, money, encouragement, late-night phone calls, comfort during heartbreaks. The second column stayed nearly empty. It hit her like a wave. For 68 years, she had poured endlessly into others, but barely allowed herself to rest, to receive, to simply be. That night, something shifted inside her. Not out of bitterness, but clarity. She realized her exhaustion wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. She had run on empty for too long, so she started making changes, not just to her diet or supplements, but to her beliefs. She replaced the phrase, "I have to," with "I choose to." She gave herself permission to say no, even to family. She stopped viewing rest as laziness and began to see it as sacred. One Sunday morning, Charlotte skipped church for the first time in years. Instead, she brewed herbal tea, sat on the porch in her robe, and listened to birdsong with her feet tucked under a warm blanket. It felt rebellious, but it also felt right. When her daughter called later that afternoon, stressed and rushed, Charlotte didn't jump in to fix things. Instead, she said gently, "Sweetheart, I love you, but I'm learning to protect my peace. Let's talk tomorrow when we're both calm." Layla was stunned at first, but later texted, "I'm proud of you, Mom." Charlotte smiled. That small shift, a boundary, a breath, a moment, wasn't just about preserving energy. It was about reclaiming identity. She wasn't just someone's mother or caregiver. She was Charlotte, a woman with wisdom, desires, and worth. And slowly, day by day, her perspective began to blossom. Fatigue didn't mean failure. It meant a signal, a message from her soul. It's time to care for you. And this time, she was finally listening. Charlotte didn't expect a chance encounter at the local library to change everything. But that's exactly what happened. She had gone in to return a few books and maybe pick up a novel to read by the fireplace. But as she walked past the community bulletin board, a small flyer caught her eye. It read, "Energy After 60, a wellness workshop for women overcoming fatigue. Free to attend, Saturday at 10 a.m., led by Dr. Maya Ellis, holistic geriatric specialist." Charlotte paused. She rarely signed up for events like this. Crowds drained her, and she worried she'd feel out of place. But something about it felt timely, almost like an invitation from the universe. That Saturday, she walked into the cozy community center, unsure of what to expect. But within minutes, she felt safe. The room was filled with women just like her, women who looked tired, curious, and ready to feel different. Dr. Maya stood in front of them, not in a white coat, but in jeans and a soft lilac sweater. She spoke not like a doctor, but like a daughter, a sister, a friend. "We don't lose energy because we're old," she began. "We lose energy because we've been expected to do too much, for too long, with too little support." Charlotte felt seen. The workshop covered more than hormones and supplements. It explored blood sugar regulation, nutrient absorption after 60, medication fatigue, and the big one, emotional exhaustion. Dr. Maya offered simple, practical strategies. Eat protein first at every meal. Don't skip magnesium or B12. Walk for 10 minutes after meals to stabilize energy. And above all, schedule rest like it matters. Because it does. Charlotte scribbled notes like her life depended on it, because in many ways, it did. After the workshop, she lingered. She struck up a conversation with another attendee, June, a vibrant 72-year-old who had once battled the same crushing fatigue. "I used to fall asleep in my recliner at noon," June said with a laugh. "Now I walk 2 miles a day and teach watercolor classes. I just had to relearn how to support this new version of my body." They exchanged numbers. A new friendship was born. That evening, Charlotte drove home with a quiet kind of hope bubbling beneath the surface. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't instant, but it was real. She realized this chapter of life didn't have to be defined by loss. It could be a new beginning, a chance to know her body deeply, to nourish it with wisdom, not just willpower. And for the first time in a long time, Charlotte wasn't just surviving the day. She was stepping into it with intention and the beginning flicker of renewed energy. Over the next few months, Charlotte became a woman transformed, not overnight, but moment by moment, step by gentle step. She began waking up earlier, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. There was something about the stillness of morning that soothed her now. She'd slip into her robe, brew a cup of herbal tea, and sit by the window as the sun peeked over the frosted Vermont hills. Her body still had its limits. Some days were slower than others. But the fog that once clouded her mind began to lift. She started taking daily walks again. At first it was just to the mailbox, then to the corner, and eventually down the wooded trail behind her home, where she would breathe in the crisp pine air and let the forest steady her heart. Charlotte also became more mindful of what went into her body. She swapped toast and jam breakfasts for protein-rich smoothies with flaxseed and berries. She took magnesium in the evening and B12 in the morning. Tiny choices that made a big difference. But the biggest change wasn't what she did. It was how she saw herself. One afternoon, she was babysitting her grandkids while her daughter ran errands. Normally, she'd feel wiped out by midday, but this time she was different. As she sat on the floor building towers out of wooden blocks with little Claire and Max, she noticed something strange. She was having fun, not just pretending to be engaged, not just getting through the moment. She was fully there, laughing, engaged, present. It hit her like a gentle wave. This is what I was missing. It wasn't just about energy. It was about being able to experience her life again. She no longer saw rest as weakness, but as fuel. She didn't apologize for saying no to things that drained her. And when people asked what she'd been doing lately, she smiled and said, "I'm learning how to be alive again." Charlotte even joined a local women's wellness group, led by June from the workshop. They met every Tuesday evening for tea, stretching, and conversations that often turned teary, then healing. And with every meeting, every mindful meal, every conscious breath, Charlotte felt something returning. Herself. She was no longer just the caretaker, the retiree, or the woman slowing down. She was the author of a new chapter, one that honored her limits, respected her wisdom, and embraced her right to thrive. Because what she learned, what she lived, was this: true growth doesn't always look like pushing harder. Sometimes it looks like pausing long enough to listen and choosing a kinder way forward. There was a moment, just a quiet one, when Charlotte stood in her backyard, wrapped in her wool shawl, watching snowflakes fall gently onto the garden she once tended with her late husband. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was trying to outrun time. She was finally walking with it. Her energy wasn't perfect. There were still days when her body needed extra rest, when old aches whispered through her bones. But she no longer feared those days. She welcomed them with compassion, not shame, because Charlotte had stopped fighting herself. She had learned that being strong wasn't about enduring silently or doing everything for everyone. True strength, she discovered, was the ability to say, "I matter too." She had stopped asking for permission to rest, to heal, to say no. She had begun to honor the woman she'd always been and to nurture the woman she was still becoming. Neighbors began to notice something different. "You look lighter," one said. "I've never seen you glow like this," said another. Charlotte would smile, touched but humble, and answer honestly, "I started listening to my body." That changed everything. Her daughter Layla watched this transformation with awe. One night as they sat together folding laundry, Layla said, "I thought I'd have to take care of you, Mom, but you've taught me how to take care of myself." Tears welled in Charlotte's eyes. She reached over, squeezed her daughter's hand, and whispered, "That's the best thing we can give each other." Charlotte's story is not just about hormones, supplements, or sleep. It's about awakening. It's about choosing not to disappear into the background just because you've hit a certain age. It's about reclaiming your voice, your joy, your rhythm, and doing it with grace, not urgency. She no longer feared birthdays. She celebrated them. She no longer dreaded slow mornings. She cherished them. She no longer looked in the mirror and saw only what was fading. She saw what was emerging, and maybe that's the most powerful truth of all, that it's never too late to begin again. Not when your heart is still beating, not when your spirit is still whispering, "There's more for you." So if you're reading or watching this and thinking, "That sounds like me," then hear Charlotte's voice echoing back to you. You are not broken. You are just beginning a new chapter, and you are allowed to make it beautiful. The greatest lesson Charlotte learned was this: exhaustion is not a personal failure, it's a message. For too long, women have been taught to power through, to keep giving until there's nothing left. But real vitality doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from pausing, listening, and honoring what your body and soul truly need. She learned that aging isn't the end of energy. It's an invitation to reconnect with your body in a wiser, gentler way. You are not meant to fade quietly. You're meant to evolve powerfully. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to rest. It's okay to say, "I matter too." And the moment you stop seeing your fatigue as weakness and start seeing it as wisdom calling you back to yourself, everything begins to change. Because no matter your age, you are still growing, still worthy, still full of life. Start small. Don't overwhelm yourself. Choose just one daily act of care. Drink a glass of water first thing in the morning, take a 10-minute walk, or simply sit quietly with your thoughts. Ask your doctor to check your B12, vitamin D, and hormone levels. Write your symptoms down before appointments. Be your own advocate. Fuel your body with stable energy. Add protein and healthy fats to your meals. Take breaks during the day, not after you crash, but before. And give yourself space to feel. Journal. Call a friend. Breathe. Remember, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's how you stay strong enough to keep loving, living, and showing up fully. You deserve that every single day. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and share with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if today's story touched your heart, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, stay well, and see you in the next story.